just spoke a verse with 4 lines. Whatever dhammas there are that arise from a cause, the Tathagata has spoken the cause, and also their cessation. That's what the great sage teaches. And when Sariputta heard that, that was enough for him to make that breakthrough. So his faculties were ripe enough.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Even if the Buddha's 2 teachers were reborn in the formless realm, couldn't the Buddha use his mind to communicate?
Yeah, this I don't know. Apparently not. Actually, apparently not, because it's taken to be one of sort of like the fundamental principle. It's stated several times in the canon that there are 2 conditions for the arising of right view, which is understood in the sense of the supramundane right view. One is the wise reflection, and the other is the utterance of another person. Except for those who become fully enlightened Buddhas and the Pacceka Buddhas, they are able to get that supramundane right view just through wise reflection. But all others have to hear the utterance of another, a statement from another person. So if they don't have the ear faculty, if they don't have physical bodies, they don't have the ear, so they can't hear anything from another. Whether they can become Pacceka Buddhas there, I don't know. And in any case, suppose the Buddha gave his first teaching by mind-to-mind communication to the beings in the formless realm, and then this were to be set down in the Buddhist tradition. It would be a bit weird. And so it's much more cogent, more reasonable to keep it going at the human level, to keep the transmission, the first transmission at the human level.
But then, those that are in the formless realm, how do they achieve full liberation? Those that are in the formless realm, how do they achieve full liberation if they are not able to?
Well, as long as they're in the formless realm, they're not able to achieve it, to achieve even the first stage of understanding. They have to pass away from that realm and then come back into a lower realm in which one has the faculty of hearing. This is why it's said that there are 8 unsuitable conditions for taking rebirth. And then one of those conditions, some of them are like rebirth in the 3 lower realms, the hell realms, the animal realm, the realm of the afflicted spirits. Then another one is to be reborn in what's called the realm of the long-lived deities. And that is taken to refer to the formless realm. Because in the formless realm, one doesn't have the opportunity to hear the Dhamma and to gain understanding. But somebody who has been, this is what it said, that somebody who is a human being and achieves any of the lower stages of enlightenment can then go on to achieve the formless jhanas. Then they can be reborn in the formless realm. But because they already have the right understanding, that understanding remains with them when they take rebirth in the formless realm. And so, even though now they're without bodies, but they have the wisdom, the insight, the understanding to be able to cultivate in that realm, and then they can reach even arhatship, full liberation, in that realm itself. But if they don't have that initial understanding, that initial insight, when they take rebirth in the formless realm, then there's no opportunity to gain it within that realm itself. Yeah, please.
I have a question. If they don't inform
Wait, please take the microphone. Okay.
Yeah. Say inform, what you call inform wrong, and if they don't understand the Buddhist, the Dharma teaching, how do they become the informed wrong?
How do they become?
Yeah, what do you call it? Informed.
How do they come into the formless realm?
Yes.
Oh, the meditations to achieve the rebirth in the formless realms don't depend on the Buddha's teaching. Those were meditations that were existing in India before the Buddha appeared on the scene. So these are just the meditations which lead to very, very deep samadhi, tranquility, unshakable equanimity. And so those who achieve these meditations sometimes take that attainment to be liberation. And so they don't seek anything further, they don't seek insight, wisdom, understanding. But there's, according to the Buddha, there's a subtle clinging that underlies that very peaceful, calm, equanimous state of the formless meditations. And so in order to eliminate that subtle clinging, one needs insight, wisdom. Any further questions? Okay, then let us go on and finish the sutta. Okay, now we have to remember that how the sutta began. The sutta began when a group of monks, apparently they were visiting from some other place, they came and they wanted to hear a discourse from the Buddha. And so Ananda suggested that the Buddha go to a particular hermitage where these monks were staying, and then the Buddha began giving them this discourse about the noble quest, and then he went into the biographical story, or autobiographical story, about his own quest for enlightenment. So now the Buddha is going to come back to the actual training of these monks. And he's going to speak about what are called the 5 chords, or 5 objects of sensual pleasure. So what are these 5 forms cognizable by the eye, sounds, odors, tastes, tangibles, cognizable by the body, that are wished for, desired, agreeable, likable, connected with sensual desire, provocative of lust. Okay, now the Buddha is going to speak about different ascetics, Brahmins and ascetics. Okay, so he says, there are some recluses and Brahmins who are tied to these 5 chords of sensual pleasure, infatuated with them, and utterly committed to them. Maybe I think now I render this, who are addicted to them, who are obsessed with them. And they use them without seeing the danger in them or understanding the escape from them. Okay, of them it may be understood they have met with calamity, met with disaster, and the evil one, that's Mara, may do with them as he likes. Then the Buddha illustrates this with a simile. Okay, there is a deer in the forest that comes across a heap of snares laid out by a hunter. And then the deer, which is, suppose a forest deer who is bound Okay, the forester is bound or caught, and he lays down on a heap of snares. So it might be understood of this deer, he is met with calamity, met with disaster. The hunter can do with him as he likes. And when the hunter comes, he's caught, trapped. He cannot go where he wants. And so this is like those ascetics and Brahmins who are tied to the 5 cords of sensual pleasures and use them without seeing the danger in them. Okay, now comes a statement, I think it could be a little bit misunderstood. Okay, it speaks about ascetics and Brahmins who are not tied to the 5 cords of sensual pleasure, who are not infatuated with them or addicted to them, and who use them seeing the danger and understanding the escape from them. It might be suggesting, or one might interpret this to mean that certain ascetics and Brahmins can fully indulge in sensual pleasures, a little bit like the tantric practitioners, and as long as you understand the danger in them and you use them aware of the escape from them, then you're not trapped by them. But I don't think that's the intention. I don't think the Buddha is giving a discourse on tantric practice here. But rather, I think he's speaking with regard to the basic requisites that monks would be using. Because lay people would come to the monasteries and they would offer the monks sometimes very delicious food and sometimes build not luxurious dwellings, but sometimes well-equipped, well-appointed cottages for them. And the monks might get, they call it medicinal, medicine for the sick, Vesachaparikaram, Ilana Pachya Vesachaparikaram, requisites for the sick and medicinal provisions, but it can consist of a mixture of honey, molasses, butter, and ghee. So it's quite sumptuous. They serve this in the Buddhist countries, the Theravada Buddhist countries. I never really liked it very much. It's too sweet for me, and it's heavy on the stomach. But I know some monks who just use this in abundance, and then they can swell up quite a bit from using it excessively. And then you get all sorts of health problems. It's called medicine, but you get diabetes, heart condition, overweight. Okay, so I think that is probably what is intended by these 5 cords of sense pleasure. Okay, so then the Buddha illustrates this with a forester who is not bound, unbound, and he lies down on a heap of snares. So it might be understood that this deer has not met with calamity, not met with disaster. The hunter cannot do with him as he likes. And when the hunter comes, the deer can get up and go away. And so that's like the ascetics and Brahmins who are not tied to the 5 cords of sensual pleasure. Okay, so this would be illustrating the disciples, the way I would understand it, disciples who still have sensual desire within them. They're not yet free from sensual desire. And of course they have to make use of these basic supports of life, which would can include delicious food, maybe well-prepared robes, well-appointed dwelling places, delicious refreshments, and so on. So they're not free from the sensual desire, but they use these requisites with wise reflection, with yoniso manasikara, or with yoniso patisankara, reflecting wisely, and with sense restraint, seeing the danger and attachment to them. And so in this way, they are like the deer that are not caught by the traps. Okay, then the third case is illustrated by, suppose there is a deer wandering in the forest, wilds, it's not caught by the trap at all. So it walks confidently, stands confidently, sits confidently, lies down confidently. Why is that? Because it is out of the hunter's range. Okay, so now the Buddha is going to show how the monk practices to achieve arhatship. So I'm not going to go into a detailed explanation of the jhanas. So he secluded from sense pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states. He enters and dwells in the first jhana. This monk is said to have blindfolded Mara, to have become invisible to the evil one, to deprived Mara's eye of its opportunity. Or I think a better rendering would be to have gone outside the range of Mara's vision. And the commentary gives an important explanation here, because ordinarily a practitioner who just practices the mundane jhana is not beyond Mara's range. Mara could still trap him through the attachment to the jhana, that subtle attachment. But rather the sense here is that this practitioner is going to be using the jhana as a basis for insight in order to cut off the defilements. So that is what makes that jhana a means to blindfold Mara and to get outside his range of vision. Okay, same thing, the second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. Then one goes into the formless meditations. There also, the Buddha incorporates them. He also incorporates them into the structure of his path. So one goes beyond all perceptions of form, enters and dwells in the base of infinite space, base of infinite consciousness, base of nothingness, base of neither perception nor non-perception. So these were the same meditations that the Buddha had practiced under his early teachers. But now these meditations, unlike the way they were presented by his early teachers, these meditations have now been embedded within the Buddha's path. So they have to be used as a means or a basis for developing insight. Okay, so now paragraph 41, the base of neither perception nor non-perception. So the same way, this monk is said to have blindfolded Mara, to have become invisible to the evil one by going outside Mara's range of vision. He's not yet escaped from Mara, but in this state, using it as a basis for liberation, Mara cannot see him. Okay, but now 42, again by completely surmounting the base of neither perception nor non-perception, the monk enters and dwells in the cessation of perception and feeling. Okay, this is a special meditative attainment that is unique to the Buddha's teaching. And it lies beyond the stage of neither perception nor non-perception. Okay, and then his taints or his defilements are destroyed by seeing with wisdom, through insight wisdom. And this monk is said to have blindfolded Mara, to have become invisible to Mara, to have gone outside the range of Mara's vision, and he has crossed beyond attachment to the world. And so the Buddha says, just like the deer that's deep in the forest, far away from the places where the hunters go and set their traps. He walks confidently. He stands confidently. He sits confidently. He lies down confidently. Why is that? Because he is out of the evil one's range. And that is the end of the sutta. Okay, so I'll ask for questions. Okay, Richard.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand two things in Dhamma.
Yeah, please take the
One, he shows up on the last day before Buddha's enlightenment, right?
Yeah.
And now, at that point, isn't he one? If the Buddha has no threat from him because he's way past that, but he's just on the verge of the cessation of perception and feeling in 42, right?
Yeah.
And so he's at 41, moving into 42. What I want to know is, how does Mara find him? Secondly, if the reason I'd asked you earlier whether it was Mara's retaliation that Allah, Kalama and such died at that moment, were you saying that would be that? I mean, it wasn't mentioned in here, but I was thinking, well, that might have been inferred somehow. That is, could that not have happened because Allah Kalama was invisible to Mara? Also?
I'm not sure, actually. Because, I don't think one should take everything in the text so too literally.
Yeah.
One has to say how the text is using a certain concept. And so it seems to be using the concept of being trapped by Mara, generally within the context of those practicing within the framework of the Buddha's teaching.
Yeah. Well, I guess the reason I'm trying to understand it is because it has some analogy to, the temptations of the devil in the New Testament and such. And so I'm trying to figure out what's the relationship between this evil figure, Mara, and the Christian figure, the devil. And it seems like in Christianity, the Christian tradition, right, the devil gets one last shot. Like he said, he gives 3 temptations. He says, well, you can jump down from this building, you can rule the world, and so on. And there's something analogous going on with Mara. Right? Mara shows up at the end, and one of the things he tempts the Buddha with is delights of sensuality. Right? There's all kinds of maidens with him, and so on. I'm trying to figure the relationship between these two sets of temptations and I'm trying to understand what kind of creature Mara is supposed to be and why he appears at that moment and what he's actually doing and what that represents psychologically.
Yeah, the sutta texts don't try to put together these different aspects of Mara in any kind of systematic way. But the way this Mara comes to be explained in the commentaries, drawing upon different passages, so that they work out a scheme. I think it's 5 Maras. Let's see, there's the Mara of the defilements, Mara of karmic formations, Mara of the 5 aggregates, Mara as death, and Mara as a particular deity. It's a sort of obstructive deity. Okay, so certain passages we could see Mara as being understood symbolically as a personification of the defilements in the mind. And then other passages speak about Mara as Machu Raja, which means the king of death, So Mara here is just almost like a symbol for death. In fact, the word Mara means literally the killer. It's based on the noun marana, which is death, and marati is to die, mareti is to kill. So Mara is the killer. So in that way, Mara is a symbol for the whole of samsara, the round of birth and death, which is driven by Mara as defilements. And then the defilements, what makes death possible, is the arising of the 5 aggregates to which we become attached through the defilements. So that's Mara as the defilements. That's Mara as the 5 aggregates. But then Mara appears to the Buddha after his enlightenment several times in some suttas, and tries to, for example, to persuade him not to go out and to teach the Dhamma after his enlightenment. Several times Mara tries to entice the Buddha with sensuality, sensual pleasures after his enlightenment, but he doesn't succeed. So I think on this basis, the compilers had to conclude that Mara can't be just a projection of the Buddha's own sensual desire, because the Buddha is not supposed to have any sensual desire. So Mara must be a deity existing independently. But this is an important difference between Mara and the devil, at least in popular Christianity. Mara doesn't have any connection with hell in Buddhism. And Mara's job is not to lead beings to temptation, to do real evil deeds that they get reborn in hell. Mara is completely happy if people enjoy a pleasant, happy, agreeable life in the sensual world. He wants them to be happy and to enjoy sense pleasures. What he doesn't want is for them to escape from his grip, which means to gain liberation.
Two small questions. One, I missed the second version of Mara. You said one of defilements, and then I think the third was aggregate. Right?
One of them is karma,
What's the second?
karmic activities.
Okay. And last, according to paragraph 42 there, how does Mara find the Buddha
After his enlightenment?
after his enlightenment? Yeah.
I don't know. He just, in the text he appears. But of course the Buddha is not in a deep samadhi on those occasions. The Buddha is engaged in, his day-to-day activities. And so when the Buddha is thinking to send the monks out to preach the Dhamma, then Mara comes to him and says, I still control you, recluse. I still have my grip on your mind. Then the Buddha speaks a rejoinder to Mara and says, you no longer have me, evil one. I'm no longer in your domain, and so on. And then there's occasions when the Buddha is meditating in the wilderness, and Mara comes to the Buddha and tries to frighten him by assuming the form of a terrible, ferocious elephant, or a lion, or a snake. You look in the Samyutta Nikaya, the Mara Samyutta. And then for that question that you're interested in, I remember a scholarly book that I had years ago that was called maybe Mara and Saturn, Saturn and Mara. It was published by one of these European publishing companies that publish scholarly monographs. I don't remember the name of the author. Okay, let me see the internet. Wow, too many questions. I'll take the internet questions, then we'll go for lunch and then come back and have the discussion period. Oh, today do we have the...
Yes, we need to set up the table after the...
Oh, the meeting is here. What time?
Around 12.
Excuse me?
12.
12 o'clock. Oh, so we can't have the discussion period today, sorry. Okay, so let me just take the internet questions. Some Buddhist texts state that rebirth as a human is superior, but isn't rebirth as a deity better than human beings since they can still listen to the Dhamma and carry on conversation with the Arahats? I mean, some questions are beyond my capacity to answer. So the texts always extol the human rebirth because the human life has the opportunity, it has the mixture of both suffering and pleasure or happiness, so that one can enjoy life, but then become disillusioned with pleasure through the experience of suffering. So I can't answer in detail. What are the conditions for rebirth as a deity? Jhana, merits, paramis. Generally it's said that it requires to get reborn in the sense sphere heavens, a fairly high degree in the practice of generosity and the observance of morality, some meditation, but it doesn't have to be very powerful meditation. To be reborn in the Brahma world, the form realm, then one needs the jhanas. To go into the formless realm, one needs the formless meditations. Okay, since the 5 hindrances are already abandoned before entering the first jhana, what prevents one from going into the higher jhanas after attaining the first? What prevents one from going higher are the coarser jhana factors. Like in the first jhana, it's vitakka and vichara, thought and examination. So that has to be brought to a standstill to go into the second jhana. In the second jhana, it's the piti, the rapture or bliss, that prevents one from going to the third jhana, and so on. Okay, is the cessation of perception and feeling the same as final abandoning of consciousness? At page 235. Our time is very short, so I'm just going to have to skip that question and come to an end now. Okay, so we'll end for the day, and there won't be a class next Saturday. The next class will be on June 19th, and then we'll have the class the Saturday after that, June 26th, and these 2 classes will be taking Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 28. That's the greater discourse on the elephant's footprints. So that sutta requires a fair amount of explanation, so we'll take 2 classes. Okay, so we end with the sharing of the merits. So we share the merit with the devas, the deities, the Buddhas, the fierce spirits, the nagas, the dragon spirits, and all other beings wishing them to protect the world, to protect the Buddha's teaching, to protect ourselves and others. Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahidika Punyantang Anumoditva Shiram Rakantu Sasanam Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahidika Punyantang Anumoditva Shiram Rakantu Desanam Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahidika Punyantang Anumoditva Shiram Rakantu Mam Param Etavatacha Hehi Sampadam Punya Sampadam Sabbe Devanumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya Sabbe Buddhanumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya Sabbe Satanumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya Bhavagupadhaya Vichihitato Etantare Satakayupapana Rupya Rupicha Sanya Sanino Tukha Pamochantu Usantu Vibhutim. Okay, so do 3 bows, half bows.